Well, this is another response video to Nick, the modern mystic, on the subject of responsibility, autonomy. We just keep kind of going around in a circle. Basically, Nick doesn't believe our brain is basically programmed by our environment. It feeds us the information. The native programming will do with it what it will with that information, and we will conduct ourselves accordingly. And there isn't anything we can necessarily as individuals take responsibility for, because it's basically garbage in, garbage out. And so if a person is defective by some standard of abnormality or whatever, we can't hold them necessarily responsible, because we essentially created them. Society created every individual. While I don't disagree entirely, I actually believe everything that's going to take place, everything that's coming out of my mouth now, was a preordained event, just because every atomic molecule has its, not molecule, but a particle, wave, whatever, has its course, and none of those atoms can be changed in their course, and so they will do what they will do by a predictable equation, and so we all have no control. But a word like responsibility is, we're the ones who choose to say what that means, and basically it's a judgment. It's a judgment by one brain of, say, another brain, another person's conduct. And I suppose I would argue that it really doesn't matter whether we get garbage as an input from society. Our capacity to know a few simple facts, a few simple little kernels of knowledge, is all around us. We've all experienced our power. We have all had the choice to make. Well, shall I step on this bug, or shall I not step on the bug? Shall I squish it between my fingers, or shall I not squish it between my fingers? Shall I destroy its life, its history, its destiny? Just that simple. It's over, done. So we all know we have power. We might not have control over our human companions and the rest of it, but we definitely have control over our pets and animals around us and the nature around us every day. We can choose to create all kinds of holocaust if that is our choice, or we can choose to do acts of kindness. And it is, like I said, even though it's not a real choice, it is a practical choice. And our brains stir up thoughts and ideas and images, and we produce an end result, a decision, and we conduct ourselves based on that. So I would argue there's all these kernels of knowledge, the fact that all men are created equal, the golden rule, and like I said, these simple ideas where we're given the information, the raw information, that we have power. We know of our own prejudices. We know we like a particular flavor of ice cream for no good reason whatsoever, and so we know that we wouldn't make an important judgment based on that prejudice or preference. These are it requires no advanced interaction with a knowledge database, or responsible parents, or a responsible society to glean this basic information that we have the power. We have the choice to be liars and cheaters, and it's right there in front of us. We can know those facts without having to go through any elaborate conditioning or programming or anything else. It's right there to be had, that knowledge. And some future video I'd like to go through, maybe we can compile a list in the comments here of all these little basic facts that we have, that we know, and that there's every reason for us to be able to tell the difference between lying and telling the truth. And there's just no excuse for saying well, anyway, the bottom line is that even if I agree 100% with what Nick is saying about our lack of control, the point is it's how we say it. And because he does concede that society is basically making the individual, that what he says to me makes me, what I say to him makes him, that we influence each other by what we say and by what we neglect to say. I mean, in terms of Matt's circumstance, maybe Matt needs me to say to Matt, well, Matt, you have a choice about your career. You're going to make a decision that's going to affect the rest of your life. Now, you might think, well, I'll take 5 minutes and think about it. Or you might say, well, I'll get stoned and flip a coin. And I might suggest to you, well, Matt, why don't you take a week and start writing down, certain probabilities about what you think you want in life, whether you want a family, you want this, and then try to do some sort of probability equation and figure out what might be the right career move, especially considering how the future is going to change and what might change in that future, and what knowledge or what skills might be valued in the future. So maybe you try to do a real thoughtful decision with a best calculation, rather than a whimsical, well, I feel like being a doctor today, or I feel like being a researcher tomorrow. I mean, that seems a little bit haphazard and random, so maybe I would encourage you to do as much thinking and on the subject as possible, and maybe that'll make all the difference. Now that I've said that, it makes all the difference because he has that input, but I don't think he needs it. I think he's smart enough to know these things, and he sort of can take some responsibility to make a rational choice and not a random choice. And so that's sort of what I'm getting to, is that it's not so much about this brain theory as it is the perception, our influence in even discussing it, because we've got to make people feel empowered. We've got to make people feel responsible, because if they any time they're encouraged to do, they're always encouraged by their own selfishness not to do these things, not to take responsibility. To throw it off to God or some other thing, to make some other excuse for their deciding not to take 10 minutes to do a little bit of work on the subject, or to help somebody, or do something else. And there's just, I see nothing productive coming from a discussion that essentially says, well, no individual is responsible, it's society's fault, because we all feel helpless in changing society. So if the only way I can change individuals is to change society, well, I'm going to feel pretty defeated and pretty hopeless about being able to do a damn thing. But if I think that maybe I can, maybe get people to feel some sense of responsibility. Like I said, I mean, they already should. I mean, the only way I can do it almost is to humiliate them into doing it, because there's no excuse for being as stupid as people are being. I mean, lying, shit, What 3-year-old doesn't know that lying is bullshit? It just, why are we going there as a society? Sorry, allergies. So that's basically, it's all nice theory, but the bottom line is that people, you're almost implying that people don't even have any control over the fact of whether they take time to think about something or not. I mean, I could choose to think for 15 minutes before I make a video, or 5 minutes, or 2 minutes. I can choose to think about whether I'm going to lie to my neighbor and cheat my neighbor for 5 minutes, or I can think for 10 minutes, or I can think for 15 minutes, and I'll come up with a different decision, because I gave it a little more processing time, and I was able to realize, oh yeah, that's wrong, and maybe I shouldn't do wrong things. Maybe I should try to be productive. So I'm just saying that these, I could put the bug in between my fingers, and I could sit there and say, oh, I feel like squashing it. Or I could say, well, let me think about what the right thing to do is. And I'm just saying that's a choice in a sense, in a practical sense. And yes, we can take responsibility for the choice.